Thanks for tuning in. This is Isaiah C. from the OutdoorExperiment.com. In this video, I'm going to take you guys hunting for white-tailed deer. I'm going to get this first video started off with something I like to call macro scouting. Basically, what you got to do is just drive around and look. That's number one. Start with that. Looking for a deer, looking for signs of deer, looking for whatever you can find. That's the easiest way to do it. Probably get started around June or July, depending on how early and how much time you have. If you wait until August, it's kind of getting too late to start looking for where the deer are going. You want to pattern them early in the season, so when September comes around or even August, you pretty much know right where they're going to be at or where to start looking for them. There's 2, 3, 4, 5. Oh, look at that rack. Oh yeah, there we go. That's a big one. Once it's summer, the deer are really they're gonna start moving and becoming more active. And the summer is definitely a time to start patterning them, and you're gonna see where they're going for food, where they're going for water, and where they're spending most of their time sleeping and eating. And that's key there too, because you could start to figure out what their cycle is, but also what times of day and stuff you're gonna expect to see them there, but how frequently they're there by counting the tracks and whatnot. We've driven around, we've looked and saw what we wanted to see. We found some deer, we found areas where we see deer moving around. I knew that it was time really to start what I call micro scouting, and that is basically to head out into those fields and find a specific trail or find a route or a common direction that they're traveling from. Look at that print. Ooh, that's a nice one. That's newer, but not too new. Here we go. This is the next little example of a deer print. You get the two toes that point in. They literally go digging on the dirt, and the back are a little more rounded, and they stay up on top. That's a perfect deer print right there. Frozen in the mud. Now, I'll admit this is probably one of the best hunting spots that I've ever had. The reason why it's so good is because it's just basically a giant feed plot, a soybean field, and it's surrounded on all sides by woods. You can't stand out in the middle of a field and expect a deer to walk by. As soon as they see you, they're not going to come around. So the trick really for any type of hunting, but specifically deer hunting, is to make sure that your presence isn't noticeable. Well, a lot of times that's easier said than done, because the spots and the areas that are best at concealing you are also really good at preventing you from actually seeing the deer. You're trying to figure out how you're going to get close to that deer without scaring it away. And that's probably the best part about bow hunting, is you're actually thinking, you're actually formulating strategy the whole time. And that's what makes you a better hunter, and that's what's going to get you a deer every year. By the time you're finished scouting, specifically micro scouting, you will want to have accomplished two things. The first is you will be able to predict with a certain degree of accuracy and or success when and where you'll be able to locate deer in any specific area that you've been scouting. So if you're in a big giant soybean field, you'll know within a couple of days of sitting, or at least a couple hours of sitting, that at some point a deer is going to walk by you. The second thing is you're going to have a good idea of those spots that you're going to have to sit and wait, and have some amount of concealment. So like a ground blind, a tree stand, or maybe just a bush that you stand behind. I'll do a quick pan here. It's a pretty big field. It doesn't look like it, but shooting to the other side of that, even with a rifle, it'd be pretty hard. I'd put it at probably at least 300 yards or so. You'd have to be holding pretty steady to get all the way there. Now what I did in order to make sure I get a good shot is I piled rocks. Now right out in this field here is two piles of rocks that I made, which are a lot harder to see now, but one of them is right there. I even put part of a broken plow on it, and that's at 20 yards. And if you go further, there's another pile, and you can't really tell from here, but that's about 50 yards away. And if you go back down right behind it, you can see what I did was I basically walked around in a circle a couple times and patted all this down, so that when I actually come out here hunting, most of this stuff is patted down already, and I don't make a bunch of noise when I'm sitting in my spot. And now if you look, you have a pine tree kind of right in front of you, and you have an open view off to the right and an open view off to the left. And what you do is I even put a rock right where I want my chair, See that rock right there? Put your chair on the rock right there. And then I could sit and watch. And there's a couple trails that come out of this edge of this field. And you'll actually see the deer walk out this field. And then they'll walk along the edge line of it. And they'll come in this kind of like curved valley area. And at that point, they won't be able to see you. And then they'll keep heading this way. Right around here, around this tree. And then you're going to know that they're there. And you're going to have to draw your bow back. And then when they walk and they keep walking and they get on the plain view, you'll be able to get a shot at them with your bow or your gun. Now, that just doesn't mean that these spots aren't going to change, and I would actually suggest that you are willing to change the spots at a whim. If you wake up in the morning and you feel like deer are going to walk across the other side, or you get the feeling that you're too far away or too close, you want to just move right then and there. Don't wait. Do it quietly. Do it, out of sight and out of view of the deer, but do it. And so your spots are going to continually evolve and change. They're not going to stay the same. And a matter of fact, what we're going to do is before the season starts, we're going to go to a couple of our spots that we picked. And if the deer don't walk by or we're having a hard time seeing them, we're going to change our spots. And then those will be our new hunting spots. And it's not easy to see what I'm doing, but basically I'm sitting behind this tree, this pine tree to the right of me right here. And just by being back like this, it kind of creates an illusion that I'm part of the landscape. Now, if I were sitting out in front of it, I'd be pretty much plainly visible and easy to see. But just the fact that I'm sitting right next to it kind of lumps me in with it. So I'm going to keep watching, and then we'll see what happens. There, look, we got another full moon. Or almost. And me and Moo Moo, right? We're checking out. Come on this way, this way. Curious. For some more deer sign. See anything on there? Lo and behold, we saw some deer right next to our spot, and we sat and watched them for a little bit. That helps, I mean, the deer are there. You know what type of deer are there. You know what they're eating. You know what they're doing, and you know how much time they spend in that area. And so that's useful information as soon as the hunting season starts. And those two deer that we caught some footage of, those deer were probably 200-300 yards away from where I was. I had to walk through some woods and stuff to get to that. And the whole point was what I said before is you might have to change your spot. You might have to modify your spots. So the whole goal is really to spot the deer and to figure out where you can and can't go that are going to be successful. And that's exactly what we did. That concludes part 1 of 3 of this video series. Next video, part 2, we'll actually get a chance to do some hunting. And this is Isaiah C. from theoutdoorexperiment.com. Thanks for tuning in. Until next time.